Thank you very much, Julien, and thank you for having me. Yes, so my name is Ruimy. I work for EDP Sciences, who are a small to medium-sized publisher, depending on how we compare. We're based in France, and I will talk to you about Subscribe to Open. It's a model that we didn't invent, but we were one of the first publishers to adopt it at the same time as actually the same year that Annual Reviews started publishing their journals under this model. And I thought it was very interesting to hear the previous presentations, because I find that the Subscribe to Open is really a third or a fourth way, let's say, between all the different models that were presented, and that has a lot of benefits, I think, for all stakeholders. So just a very quick reminder, it's obvious to everyone, but there is a lot of sometimes misconception about open access. So just as a reminder that open access is not just only the free immediate availability of research articles, but also for the authors the right, or for the readers, or for everyone really, the rights to reuse these articles freely according to a license. So if we put it as a diagram, it's open access, it's free access, plus free to reuse the content. I will also, in that slide, just recap maybe the different main types of open access models that are considered. So there are, and that could be amongst something like 27 business models, or even more, if one starts to counting all the different varieties of open access models that exist. So the gold open access model, supported by APCs, the diamond open access, sponsored by societies or sometimes institutions, green open access, which is really it could be grafted onto another, it could be grafted onto a subscription model, but it's the self-archiving, the rights of authors to put their articles, as well as in a journal, a version of their article on a repository. And then there are the transformative models, the transformative agreements that were the subject of the presentations earlier. There can be also various flavors of these, the publish and read and publish. But I guess we can put the Subscribe to Open model that I will talk about now under these transformative models. So there are models that take journals that exist, or publishing models that exist, and try to bring them towards open access. So Subscribe to Open, one definition that can be given is a business model that uses subscription payments to convert gated access journals to full open access. So in terms of the money that's there in the system that was mentioned also earlier, it basically does the same money in the system, and you take subscription journal and you can convert them to open access. So this diagram can summarize how it works. So you take a subscription journal in year 1. It goes through the subscription renewal period campaign. We approach the same libraries with the same processes through either agencies or directly with libraries, sometimes even individuals. We ask them if they would like to renew their subscription. If enough subscriptions are renewed, the publisher makes a commitment to publish the content in open access during the current year. And this is reviewed every year. And of course, if the subscriptions are not renewed, nothing changes. The journal remains in gated access, and the proposition is renewed again the next year. So the benefits of the Subscribe to Open model, I think we can say that they're quite wide. For libraries who commit to renewing their subscription, they're guaranteed to continue to have their access to the content with no interruption. They demonstrate their commitment to open access as well. They also just renew or use resources that they've already used in the past to support access to certain journals in the same way. but also they demonstrate that they are actually committed to open access. It actually reinforces the role of libraries towards researchers, which is, of course, the case for subscription models, but it's not always the case for open access journals, where the libraries are sometimes taken out of the equation. There's no changes in processes, so things happen the very same way, at least for libraries. It's cost neutral, so there could be increases in subscription costs, but not, this is just the normal type of inflation-based increases. And in some cases, depending on the publisher, you can have additional benefits or reserved benefits for libraries. For example, archives can be provided as part of the subscription and are not open access for everyone or free to access for everyone. For publishers, such as the company I work for, of course, we demonstrate our commitment to open access. There's a certain amount of financial security compared to flipping a journal to open access, to gold open access with APCs, where sometimes there's a big drop in the number of articles that are published in a journal. No changes in processes either. It's much easier to implement for small society publishers than transformative agreements. And that was mentioned also earlier, in that transformative agreements, they're just much easier to negotiate for big companies, even the big companies that were originally reluctant to enter in this type of changing model, but still they have the power and the resources and so on to go into these quite lengthy sometimes discussions and analysis and so on. And it can be a long-term model as well, unlike transformative agreements, which are supposed to be limited in time, supposed to lead to the open access transformation eventually. For authors, the benefits are mostly just the benefits of open access, publishing their articles in open access, except for, of course, there's no APCs to pay. In terms of the Plan S, this model complies with the Plan S, at least for the time being. The Coalition S has given its seal of approval for subscribe to open, and the other benefits in terms of rights retention and so on. And in terms of the community, there's also just the general benefits of open access for the community, and as well as the diversity of publishing models. So we promote subscribe to open as being an equitable open access model, particularly in terms of authors. Authors are always able to publish in the journal. They are not constrained by their finances, the finance of their departments and so on, or even administrative efforts to ask for a waiver, for example, for the poorest authors from the poorest countries. So why equitable? So this is in terms of authors. There's no barriers to publishing in a journal under subscribe to open. And why we call that equitable is because we want the cost has to come from somewhere, and what we would like is that who should subscribe. So who are the institutions who should subscribe? They're institutions whose members use a journal's content. So we see that we have a list of historical subscribers that have always used the content. Their researchers have demonstrated an interest for it. And we also would like to touch institutions whose members publish in the journal. They're not necessarily the same institutions. Effects of subscribe to open on usage. So this is a study, a report that was published recently by IWA Publishing. So this is the International Water Association. So they've shown that going from subscription-based publication to open access in 2021, there was a huge an explosion, let's say, of usage of their content, which shows the benefit, let's say, of opening the content in general. This comes with one of the difficulties, let's say, of implementing a subscribe to open for us publishers, is because once the content is open access, we don't necessarily know who accesses the content, and we can't necessarily go back to the libraries and say, okay, so much of the usage of that the content comes from your institution, and therefore, you know, we would strongly encourage to pay to subscribe to that journal. So this is one of the question marks, let's say, that comes with this model is. And this is expressed here in that report. For example, publishers still have difficulties collecting accurate usage data from non-subscribing institutions, and that data is essential to recruiting new subscribe to open subscribers and more equitably distributing the cost of sustaining the S2 model. So this is just one of the challenges, I guess, of implementing the subscribe to open model. This is a list of subscribe to open publishers that is maintained by the subscribe to open community. So they're a community of practitioners, they're publishers that have gotten together to form this community. So they're publishers, they're funders, they're institutions in some cases who are interested in the model and that are working together to establish a some common grounds of what exactly subscribe to open is, because there are different flavors depending on the publisher or the journal. And also to put their strength together in terms of promotion and you know, to make the model more efficient, let's say. Okay, so I'll talk about now subscribe to open at EDP Sciences. So we have as of 2022, we have now 7 journals that are published under the subscribe to open model. We started in 2020. With the first pilot journal, and that was at the same time that Annual Reviews published their first journal in open access under that model, and that pilot project, let's say, was quite successful. We received, I think, towards the end, by the end of the year, there was 100% subscribers who had renewed their subscription. So we decided to flip the next year the whole of the maths journals that we published together with the SMAI, which is the French Society for Applied and Industrial Mathematics. We decided together with them to flip all our maths journals. And that was, of course, in 2021, which was a challenging year for both institutions, libraries, and also for publishers due to the COVID and the reduction in budgets and the delays in the administrative delays and so on. So I guess it wasn't, in retrospect, the best year to try this big experiment, which was a big experiment for us. But nevertheless, we did flip all our journals. We were helped with this as well with a subvention that we received from the French government. So in 2022, and that was after several years of discussing with the owners of the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics, which is one of actually the largest journal that we publish, after several years of discussing how we could transition that journal also to open access, we decided to adopt this model as well. And we recently announced that we will publish now, as of the 4th of April, so only a few days ago, that the journal will publish in open access in 2022. So after these several years of experience that we have now, we have decided that subscribe to open model will be part of EDP Sciences' strategy to transition the remaining subscription journals to open access. But it will depend on the field. I mean, there are certain disciplines where a different model will make more sense. It could be diamond, it could be gold. Okay, so I'll go into more details about the implementation, or a little bit more details, but I'll give you some links as well if you want to have even more information. So the implementation for a publisher wanting to adopt a subscribe to open business models is at the year before you want to make the transition, of course, is you have to decide, you have to pick one or more subscription journal, and you have to decide that it will be published under a subscribe to open model. And that doesn't mean, as if you remember my one of my first slides, this doesn't mean at that point that it will be published in open access. It all depends on how the subscription renewals go during this year. So once you've made this decision, this decision that a journal will be published under a subscribe to open model, you communicate this decision. We communicate this decision to libraries, agencies, and so on. We answer all questions that they may have. We prepare communication and so on. And then the subscription renewal campaign goes on, and then it enters this subscribe to open cycle, I guess. So at one point, depending on the publisher, but for us it tends to be towards February of the current year. We evaluate the results of the subscription renewal campaign. We evaluate sometimes according to internal targets and so on. If we decide that the revenue that we've received for these journals is sufficient to be able to publish these journals in open access. So if the target is reached, and that's in terms of the number of subscribers, basically, who have renewed their subscription, we decide to publish the content in open access in the current year. If not, the journal remains in gated access or returns to gated access in a subsequent year. It hasn't happened yet, and it's a big question mark how this would work. I guess if it did happen, I mean, we know technically how it would work, but it's not a very positive message. I guess we're really hoping that these journals can continue publishing in open access. So in terms of implementation, that's EDP Sciences model. Other publishers could work differently, but for us, what we've decided is that once we make the decision to publish a given year in open access, so it's articles that are accepted from that time, so it could be March, it could be April, will be published in open access. So there are time lags. It's not, we can't go back, let's say, and publish the whole content from that year in open access. We could, but it's more complicated. And for these maths journals, for example, we have the access is reserved to the archives is reserved for subscribers only. So again, just as a reminder, it's a two-step decision, and I just insist on this because we get a lot of questions. We get a lot of questions saying, okay, subscribe to open, but I still don't have, the content is not free. It's just once we say a journal is published under subscribe to open, we still wait for the subscriptions to come in and then decide to open the content or not. So I'll go into a little bit more details, but not a lot more. About our two different sub-programs. So this is the open access in mathematics. So that was the first journals that we decided for which we decided to experiment with this model, and it was because, particularly in France, the French mathematics community is absolutely opposed to APCs. So if we were to transition these journals to open access sometime in the future, there was no way these journals would go to gold open access. And in fact, the maths community is quite attached to a diamond open access in general. And if you go back to the slide I presented a few slides back about the list of S20 publishers, three of these publishers, of important mathematics publishers in the world actually decided to use this model. So EDP Sciences, we were the first one since 2021, since 2020 in fact, and then in 2021, along with EMS, the European Mathematical Society, who also made the same decision in 2021 and have had 10 journals published open access in 2021. And recently, the mathematical science publishers, I think based in Berkeley, also announced for 2023 that 5 of their journals would publish under this model. And of course, these journals are not in open access yet, and they don't know yet if they will be in open access, because it will depend again on if subscribers follow them in this route to open access. And the alternative, of course, for the maths community is well, either they would stay with publishers like us and have the full range of services that publishers offer. You know, we're talking about indexation this morning. We're talking about, you know, all the different, you know, the different preservation of content and so on that publishers can do. That's what they do. You know, that's what our business is. If not, then these journals would tend to go towards diamond open access platforms, which may or may not have the same amount of services available to them under these platforms. So that's open access or subscribe to open in mathematics. In astronomy, so this is the last journal that we transitioned this year in 2022. So the situation in astronomy, the landscape in astronomy, let's say, is that there are 4 core journals, 4 core astronomy journals that have the highest impact factor and that everyone publishes in pretty much, or wants to publish in. So this is a slide taken by the ESO librarian, who we actually collaborate with quite closely on the open access transition for our journal. So these are the 4 4 core open access journals, core astronomy journals, including astronomy and astrophysics, which we publish as a service provider for the astronomy and astrophysics board of directors. And the pre-existing situation in astronomy is that astronomers are very attached to green open access, or they have a tradition of working under green open access models. That is, virtually every author publishing in these 4 core journals, for example, or maybe in astronomy in general, publishes their research on archive, on a preprint repository. So the research is available really to everyone, even before the paper is submitted to a journal. Everyone has access to this research and can already start, you know, working with this content. So this was the tradition in this tradition of green open access in astronomy. This was the pre-existing situation for us when we decided what, you know, we were discussing with the ANA owners what to do, how to transition the journal, if even we needed to transition the journal to full open access because of this situation where all the content is already free to read for everyone. So the decision was made in collaboration with ANA, the journal, to use a subscribe to open model. Again, because at the time the assumption we were working under is that the community would not support a transition to gold open access just because of this green, you know, because people already share their content and don't particularly like the APC model. So we decided on the subscribe to open model, and we're experimenting with this now in 2022. In the same year, in 2022, actually, the two out of the 4 other core journals also made a decision to transition to full open access for their journals, which is, I guess, a vindication for us having to decide to go to full open access, but they chose a different model. They chose a gold open access model. So these decisions were announced within weeks of each other. Okay, so that's for EDP Sciences and the journal or the journal collections that we propose under subscribe to open. And I'll talk in the last few slides about the transition. So a lot of the some of the talks earlier were about, you know, how to transition, I guess, particularly from transformative agreements to full open access. And I'd just like to share not a recipe, but our experience at EDP Sciences. So for our maths journals, we started as subscription journals. They had no APCs because of this tradition, or because of this strong dislike of APCs in that particular community. We had actually not transformative agreements, but one transformative agreement negotiated between EDP Sciences and the French consortium. That went on for 5 years, and that has actually been renewed, or is under renewal recently. And we decided to transition these journals to subscribe to open. So in terms for the publisher, now I'm talking about from the point of view of the publisher, the revenue for us has been pretty much stable because there was no APCs to start with, so there was no loss of income from that side. And also because the French consortium decided to continue to go with us on that journey, let's say, to support the subscribe to open model and to continue to support it at the level that they were supporting us previously. So the revenue has been flat. And in addition, we've been lucky to be able to attract some sponsorship, I guess, to get the model established. One from the French National Fund for Open Science, and another one from CNRS, which was announced very recently. What we also did to secure the financial stability or sustainability of the model was we took the services, we hired the services of Knowledge Unlatched, which is a company that's been working on a similar type of model than Subscribe to Open. It's a kind of a crowdfunding model. They go to various libraries and ask them, would you like to contribute to making, for example, this book or this journal open access? So they had this experience, and they also had institutions that they were working with, that they were used to work with. So this has helped us as well to attract new subscribers through that partnership with Knowledge Unlatched. So for us, the transition for the maths journals has been very smooth as a publisher, and we're very happy that the level of subscriptions is continuing, and we're very hopeful for the future. For astronomy and astrophysics, the situation is a little bit more complicated, but we're also hopeful. This started as a hybrid journal, so it did charge authors APCs if they wanted to publish in open access in the journal. And in fact, this had been growing in recent years, the level of APCs and the fraction of content that was published in open access. So, of course, this meant discontinuing the APCs meant a loss of funding for the publisher, but at the same time, you could argue that this is a good thing because the journal publishing more and more open access, we had to, at some point, we had to at least stop the impression that we were double dipping, and we had to commit the journal to go one way or the other. So the APCs stopped, or are stopping as of now. We also had two transformative agreements, the same French transformative agreement, which applied to this journal as well, and a pilot transformative agreement with the Max Planck Institutes in Germany. So for us as a publisher, the move to subscribe to open means that the revenue is dropping. So this is, I guess, a contribution from us as a publisher to the open access transformation of this journal. And am I okay for time, or 3 minutes? Okay, I'll try to go more quickly. Libraries and subscribe to open. I'd like to mention something here that was talked about also at length in the previous talks about transparency. So this is the results of a survey that was conducted by the Subscribe to Open community of practice and by annual reviews that showed that transparent pricing was the number one reason that, or the number one expectation of libraries to support this type of model. So as a result, we decided back in last year, already in 2021, to publish as much information as we could while being, while not releasing too much business confidential information, but be as transparent as possible about our costs and our prices and our income as well. And this is available online. So there's 2 reports, one for 2021 and one for 2022, that are available to everyone. But also, if libraries are interested in more information, we're committing to giving them whatever information they want in terms of transparency. We're not working using one of these frameworks that was mentioned earlier, but we're hoping to do this in the future. We've also conducted recently a survey of astronomy and astrophysics subscribers, asking them about how they felt about the sustainability of this type of model, and are they expecting particular benefits in addition to their, to their subscription and to committing to open access. And this is the results, but it's the message was quite mixed. I mean, a lot of institutions said that they're supporting the model now, but they don't know if they will, if they have to cut costs and so on. They may have to cut the costs for these journals, these type of journals that may or may not be in open access. So this is where the question mark comes in the future, I guess. And that's the end of my presentation. Just to mention that I've put in some leaflets outside about the journals, the maths journals and astronomy and astrophysics that are now working under that model if you're interested. Thank you.